Welcome to Workplace Wake Up, your go-to podcast for practical employment law guidance. I'm Jennifer Shaw, the founder of Shaw Law Group, and I'm here to help HR professionals and leaders navigate the legal minefield of the modern workplace. Each week, we tackle real-world issues with clear advice and a little tough love. Let's get started. Okay, the year's going by quickly, and that's painful, as any of you parents know, if you have kids in school, because my daughter, Ella, is going to be finishing her sophomore year in high school, which is not even possible. She drove by my office today in her little Subaru. We got her this old 2017 Subaru wagon. She drives by my office in the wagon with her dad because she's got her permit, but not her license yet. And I'm looking at her like, what? And she's got 2 more years of high school. This is crazy. I feel like I just want to slow down time on one hand, but then on the other hand, I don't know. Anyway, enough of that. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. We are talking about one of my favorite issues today because I am just about fed up with these payroll companies. All right. And let me tell you where I'm coming from. I think they're all lovely. They have lovely people, whether we're talking about Paylocity or Paychex or ADP. I don't care. Bamboo, whatever. The problem is none of them understand fully California law. So the problem is none of them understand fully California law. And that leaves you in a very bad place as an employer. Because what's happening, guys, is that they are pre-programming their payroll system. And maybe you have timekeeping through them as well, right? Maybe you're using them for timekeeping. And they have all these rules. And when you sign up with them, they tell you, oh, you have to fill out this menu and, you have to tell us what you want to do. Some of which, in my mind, shouldn't even be optional because it really is something that is just what California law requires, like how you calculate the regular rate of pay, okay? But they consider it to be a custom calculation. And what that means is if there was ever a time for you to pay attention to what vendors you are using, this is it. Because I have not found a payroll company yet that is able to do this with the level of competency that I would expect for what you are paying them. Now, I will tell you, I think Paylocity is one of the best. I really like them. They have good people. But even that, they make mistakes. And you have to go back and really figure out how you want things to be handled. So the first thing I want you to understand here is it is not a defense to say, oh, our payroll company handles that, or that's what ADP told me to do, or Paychex made me choose that menu option. That does not work, okay? You are on your own, and I guarantee you the agreement you signed with your payroll company says very clearly that they will not indemnify you if you screw this stuff up. You are on your own, okay? So that means buyer beware, caveat emptor, right? You better make sure you understand who you are using. I also want you to remember that wage hour exposure, guys, comes from math. It doesn't come from malice, all right? They're not trying to do something to make your life difficult. It's just the math matters. And if we're not doing the math the way California law wants us to do the math, we have a problem. And in California, even a, quote, technical violation, right? Something that is, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. There's no actual harm to the employee, but it's technically incorrect. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that technical violations, so violations of the law that don't actually result in damage or actual harm to the employee, they still create liability for you in California. The employee doesn't have to prove they actually were damaged or harmed by your violation. If you don't have the right information on your wage statement, you have violated Labor Code Section 226A, whether you meant to or not, and whether your employee was harmed or not. So if the name of your company is Acme Enterprises, but the name on the wage statement is Acme Inc., Your employee probably won't even notice that, but you have violated the law because the name of your company is not Acme Inc., it is Acme Enterprises. All right? So these technical violations can be a real problem for you. When you think about why this all matters, you realize that small miscalculations, this is how we get PAGA claims, this is how we get class actions, this is how all of this liability comes to fruition, right? Is through little boo-boos along the way. It's very rarely a big mistake. And of course, you've got to know that when plaintiffs' lawyers ask their clients to get a copy of their payroll records, or when they write you an email, a request for payroll records, you got to know they're going to run their audit on those pay stubs before they ever file suit. They're going to look at what is in those pay stubs. So this is why when I talk to some of you on the phone who are clients of ours, or you're an employer's lawyer, and you ask me, okay, well, Jen, is this really a big deal? I mean, maybe the plaintiff's lawyers won't figure it out. If they're suing you, they already figured it out. And when you have things on your pay stub that you can't explain, those are the things they're going to get you on, right? It needs to be completely clear to your employees from the face of their pay stubs why they're getting the compensation they're getting. Now, one of the biggest areas we have of wage hour liability when it comes to these payroll issues is the regular rate of pay. So first of all, remember, if somebody only gets one rate of pay for anything they do, let's say they get $20 an hour. It doesn't matter if they're traveling, it doesn't matter what they do, they get $20 an hour unless they're entitled to overtime, and then they get $30 an hour unless they're entitled to double time, and then they get $40 an hour. It's very straightforward. In that case, that base hourly rate, the $20 an hour, is the same thing as their regular rate of pay. Okay? Remember that the regular rate of pay is the number used to calculate overtime. So, in our example, where the person makes $20 an hour no matter what, that means their regular rate of pay is $20 an hour no matter what. And that times 1.5 is their overtime rate, and that times 2.0 is their double time rate. When it gets dicey is when your employees are getting other types of compensation. They're getting a non-discretionary bonus. They're getting a shift differential. They're getting a flat sum bonus, a bonus that says, I'll give you an extra $50 if you're willing to work Saturday this weekend. It's not based on how many hours you work. It's just based on, or what you do while you're working. It's just based on, will you work this shift, right? Or I'm going to give you $350 if you don't take our benefits. Well, that's a flat sum bonus. Those have to be calculated differently. And if you have these kinds of additional forms of compensation and they are earning, commissions, by the way, is another example, and your employees are earning these items over time, let's say you have a quarterly bonus or you pay a monthly safety bonus, you have to go back and do a retroactive overtime calculation once you figure out whether they got the bonus. Because remember, you paid their original overtime during that pay period based on the regular rate of pay at that time. If a month from now they're getting a bonus or they're getting commissions or they were getting shift differentials and that changes their regular rate of pay, now you're going to go owe them more overtime for that whole period of time over which they accrued that bonus or those commissions. Okay? So what that means is when you do your retroactive overtime calculation, you've got to make sure you're going over the right period of time, right? Is it a quarterly bonus? Is it an annual bonus? And that you're including all of the appropriate compensation to decide what their regular rate of pay is going to be. Now, it's not just regular rate of pay, though, where we have issues. Remember that if you don't provide a compliant rest break or meal period for a non-exempt employee, you may owe them a 226.7 penalty, right? A Labor Code Section 226 penalty or premium. That's 1 hour at the employee's regular rate of pay. Now, again, if we're in our $20 example, that's easy. It's $20. But if we have somebody who's received a bonus, shift differentials, they had commissions, anything like that, Now we're in a different universe. Okay, now that regular rate of pay is not going to be the $20. It might be $22.12. And that is what the meal period needs to be paid at. By the way, that's also what California Healthy Families, Healthy Workplace Sick Leave needs to be paid at. The regular rate of pay for non-exempt employees. If the base rate is $20 and they get no other compensation, that is easy. But as soon as you give them more compensation, now you have a problem, all right? And here's the thing, you guys. When you sit down with a payroll company and you're setting all of this up, you may not even know this stuff. Many times the people are setting up these systems, these menus with the payroll companies don't know the rules. They're not in HR. They might be an ARAP person, right? Accounts receivable, accounts payable. So you have them talking to the payroll company and they don't know what's going on. They don't understand these crazy wage hour requirements. And when you look at how these penalties can stack up, right, with your waiting time penalties under Labor Code Section 203, if you don't pay them everything they are owed by their last day of employment, or if they quit within 72 hours, you've got wage statement penalties, you've got the Private Attorney General's Act where things can stack, penalties can stack there. You can get attorney's fees. Remember that you can get class certification for class actions, which are different than PAGA cases, which are representative actions. Representative actions are much easier to meet the requirements for than a class action. So a PAGA case is easier than a class action, but it's all out there, all right? Now, how do you fix this problem? All right, first of all, I want you to do an annual payroll audit. Many of you have worked with Elena Schroeder in our office. She's been with our firm forever. She's amazing. She's a wage hour guru. She does these audits all the time. You've got to do them, and you should do them every year. And if you do them with your lawyer, it's privileged, but you don't have to do it with the lawyer. You don't want to do it? Don't do it with your lawyer, but do it. And don't do it with the payroll vendor alone. You may need to include the payroll vendor, but I want you doing it, if possible, with your in-house or your out-house counsel, okay? You've got to make sure you have a very clear definition and understanding of what are all the pay codes on your wage statement, right? Or that could potentially show up on the paycheck. And what do they mean? And how are they calculated? So if you have something that says MONBON, okay, that's monthly bonus. All right, well, you better tell us, okay, they accrue it over the prior calendar month? Is it just 30 days? How is it accrued? How is it paid? You've got to know every single one of those codes. And the last couple of months, I have had so many calls with clients where we get on the line with the payroll company and we start looking at the codes and the client doesn't know what the codes mean. And I'm not criticizing. I get it. You're busy. But you can't make sure that your payroll company is doing what they're supposed to be doing if you don't even know what those pay codes mean. All right? So you've got to understand what do the codes mean and how are they calculated. Then you've got to review your pay stub line by line for compliance. Okay? We call these wage statement audits or payroll audits. And I want you to spot check other things. Look at the stubs. Make sure that sick leave is paid at the regular rate. Make sure that your 226.7 premiums, your rest and meal period premiums for a short rest break or a one that didn't happen or a late one, same thing for meal periods, that those are on there. If you do that, you're going to be fine. If you close your eyes, plug your ears, and click your heels together and just pray for the best, good luck, because that is not going to happen on your payroll side. This stuff is complicated, guys, and you just can't be relying on, a hope and a prayer, okay? You're going to have to dig in, get the numbers, figure it out, and really test your calculations. And I know some people say, oh, wage hour is so complicated and so hard and I can't do it. Yes, you can. You can do hard things. I tell Ella this every day. Yes, it's hard. And yes, you can do geometry. And yes, it's hard. But you can learn about what happened in World War I. Okay, you can do it. You can name all the generals from World War II if you need to. I know it's hard, but we can do hard things. Okay, so I don't want to hear it's hard. I know it's hard. I get it. But I'll tell you what's harder. It's having your deposition taken in a PAGA case and not being able to explain what those codes mean and how you calculated it. And thinking that by saying, oh, well, that's what Paylocity did, that's not going to give you the answer. Paylocity cannot read your mind. Paychex does not know how you pay your bonuses. You have to tell them that. It is their job to make sure the calculation is right. But remember, garbage in, garbage out. So you've got to make sure you give them that information. So remember, you guys, compliance is all about the details. It's all about making sure that you are dotting your I's and crossing your T's. And remember, if you don't audit your payroll, somebody else will. All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining me today. Go enjoy the beautiful sunshine today, and I will see you next time. Workplace Wake Up, including our guests and hosts, do not provide legal advice in this podcast. Do not act upon any of the information discussed in this podcast without first consulting a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Workplace Wake Up. If you found today's discussion helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your HR and leadership teams. For more insights, training programs, and legal updates, you can visit us at shawlawgroup.com.